Laws of reflection. Laws of reflection states that the incident ray, the reflected ray, and the normal to the surface at the point of incidence all lie in the same plane. So ang pasabot ani is ang kining tulo ka elements, the incident ray, reflected ray ug ang kining normal which is kini kay naa sila sa usa ka same plane. So pwede sad siya inani siya og itsura. Muna siyang ginagamit nato. With this is the normal, this is the incident ray, and this is the reflected ray. And then the law 2 states that the angle of reflection is equal to the angle of incidence. So if ang law 1 is more on the coplanar side in which ang kining tulo ka elements kay naa sila tulo permente, ang law 2 is more on the angular side in which mag-ingon siya na ang angle of reflection ug angle of incidence is always equal mathematically. That is our theta r here is equivalent to the theta I, or the angle of reflection is equal to angle of incidence. So if ang ato angle of incidence nga ri kay let's say 40, ang imo angle of reflection nga ri is also 40. Types of reflection. Types of reflection natay duha, natay regular or specular reflection and the diffused reflection. So unsa may naa sa regular or specular reflection? So it states here that this occurs when light reflects off a smooth and polished surface like a mirror. The reflection is clear and follows the law of reflection with light rays bouncing at equal angles. So for example, here is a still water. So as you can see here, clear ang iya image because wala ray disturbance na gi-create ang water na maka-disrupt siya sa image nga rin sa mountain. And then we have here the slit lamp technique of a specular technique, illumination technique. So sa specular, kuha na to na equal ang angle between this and this sa observer side and sa illumination. So some resources also states nga 30-30 siya, while ang sa kining image nga is 45-45. That is also acceptable as long as makit-an sa observer ang ilagi pangita, which is the specular refraction of the posterior corneal surface. So that's why sa specular technique sa slit lamp ang ato gina-assume or ang ato gina-expect sa normal na finding is dapat smooth lang ang ato makit-an. That is because ang kining specular reflection reflects off a smooth and polished surface, and the posterior corneal surface should be smooth if wala siya problema. However, if naa siya mga problems, so if naa siya intracellular details nga dili siya mga maayo, like the corneal endothelial mosaic na magpangita ta sa gutay, which is the Fuchs endothelial dystrophy. Dira na to kita ng mga precipitates. Muna siya ang specular. Ato lang i-discuss sa other videos kung makaka-video man ko. And then next is we have the second type of reflection, which is the diffused reflection. So this is also called the irregular reflection. This is because light reflects off a rough or uneven surface, scattering in various directions. It doesn't follow the law of reflection precisely, leading to a less clear reflection. Nagihapon siya reflection, pero dili lang siya as clear as sa specular reflection nato or ang regular reflection. So here is an example. So since ang ato man water nga is flowing or moving, so ang image na iyag na produce nga is not so clear compared sa katong mountain kanina. And then of course nasa slit lamp technique in which we utilize the diffuse technique, wide beam, low to medium nga illumination. So muna siya ang ato diffuse reflection in which light scatters to irregular surfaces such as the lids, lashes, conjunctiva, and other things that you need to observe grossly. So muna siya ang diffuse because it reflects off a rough or uneven surface. Wala man siguro lids or lashes na kanang perfectly smooth na need ka og specular para maka-observe, di ba? So the more the diffuse The more the light scatters, the more that you can observe na sa unsa lang gyud ang imo gusto tan-awon. And then types of mirrors. So we actually have 4 types of mirrors. We have plane mirrors, the spherical mirrors, which are the concave mirrors and convex mirrors. This is where daghan og mga equations, which I will be bringing it on another video. So, and also sa plane mirrors, ako lang sa separate ang equations, pero mag-discuss lang ko ani gamay sa mga basic lang na mga formula anhin na video. And then spherical mirrors, ato sa na-discuss siya later on. So let's have an example for our plane mirrors lang sa. So 2 plane mirrors are positioned such that the angle between the reflective surfaces is 60 degrees. As a ray of light strikes the first mirror, or the mirror 1, at an angle of incidence of 40 degrees relative to the normal line. Determine the final angle of reflection when the ray bounces off the second mirror, or mirror 2. So if you are reviewing, so you may pause this video and answer for yourself para makakompare ka sa ako answers later on. So first things first, ang ato buhaton ani is ato i-visualize first kung unsay itsura aning 2 plane mirrors. So unsay itsura aning first mirror nato. So 60 degrees daw sila. So we can have that. Sorry for my drawing, pero inana siya. And then we can have here muna siya ang ato 60 degrees kini. This is our 60 degrees. And then a ray of light strikes down the first mirror. So naatay light na naghayag nga rin. Naghayag nga rin na light at an angle of incidence of 40 degrees. So we can draw here ang ato normal line. So if ato ni siya i-rotate, inani na siya itsura na diring normal, pero kini lang ang ato para ma-visualize na to ang iya pagka 60 degrees. And then by the law of reflection, ang kining isang angle of reflection anhi sa ato mirror 1 is also this is 40 degrees, and then kini sad kay 40 degrees because our angle of incidence is 40 degrees. And then since ang kining normal relative to the plane here, ang kining plane mirror nato nga rin is 90 degrees na siya because ang isa kayong ani is 180 degrees. Nya tungod kay gitunga man siya sa normal line, that is 90 degrees for both sides. So since 90 degrees both sides man siya, ang kini, this is called our glancing angle. So glancing angle ni siya nato. Ang formula sa ato glancing angle is basically just 90 minus angle of incidence. So 90, pila man nato angle of incidence, this is again 40. So minus 40 is equal to 50. So that means our glancing angle here is 50. So what does this mean? Nganong ato man nagikuha ang glancing angle? It's because magpakita sad nga rin sa pikas side nga 50 degrees sad siya nga rin. Same ra ang angle of glancing angle sa both sides. The same ra sad ang angle of incidence sa angle of reflection. So if nanatay 50 degrees nga rin and nanatay 60 degrees nga rin, can you see the pattern nga rin? Hapit na siya mo form og triangle. Okay? So natay 50 degrees, natay 60 degrees, and then what we are going to find now is the glancing angle of this second mirror. This is our second mirror, this is our first mirror. And then we all know na ang triangle 180 degrees siya all in all. So we can say here na 50 plus 50, 6 plus 60 plus x is equal to 180. Ang ato gipangita nga ri is ang kining x because that is the glancing angle of our second mirror. So 50 plus 60 is equal to 110 plus x is equals to 180. 180 minus 110 is equivalent to 70. That means that the glancing angle of the second mirror is 70 degrees. However, ang ato i-determine nga is the final angle of reflection when the ray bounces off the second mirror. So, balik na sad ta sa kining glancing angle formula. However, na naman tayo glancing angle na nakuha. So, ang ato na pangitawon karon is ang kining angle of incidence. Basically, we'll just have to transpose the formula of the glancing angle so that ang mahimoan na ng formula is ang para na sa angle of incidence. So, ato na i-transpose. So, angle of incidence is equivalent to 90 minus glancing angle. And then we'll just have to substitute values. So, angle of incidence 90, ato glancing angle was 70. So, our angle of incidence for this example is 20 degrees. Angle of incidence sa mirror 2. This is mirror 2. So, by the law of reflection, ang ato angle of incidence is always equal to the angle of reflection. Thereby, the determining of the final angle of reflection of the bouncing of the second mirror will be equivalent also to this 20 degrees. Thereby, the final answer for our example 1 is 20 degrees. Let's have another example. So, two plane mirrors are inclined at an angle of 60 degrees to each other. With the first mirror, M1, positioned horizontally, a ray of light strikes M1 at an angle of 40 degrees from the horizontal. Determine the final angle of reflection relative to the normal line when the ray leaves the second mirror. So, you may pause the video if you are now confident to answer this by yourself. And you may compare your answers later on. Okay, again, let's visualize this example. So, two plane mirrors daw are inclined. Inclined na sila. At 60 degrees to each other. So, naa siya 60 degrees anhi. Okay? With the first mirror positioned horizontally. So, pwede sa nimo i-drawing siya na ana if mas comfortable ka ani. Same naman gihapon answer na makuha. And then a ray of light strikes M1. Let's call this first surface as our M1 and this is our M2. So a ray of light strikes M1 at an angle of 40 degrees from the horizontal. So naatay keyword nga rin na horizontal. So what does this mean? This means nga mo ni ang kining 40 degrees mo na ang ato glancing angle because it is from the horizontal. This is our normal line and then this is our incident ray, this is our reflected ray, and then from the horizontal man siya, so mo ni siya ang ato 40 degrees. Determine the final angle of reflection relative to the normal line. So angle of reflection nato pangitaon when the ray leaves the second mirror. So, we now have the 40 degrees. Yeah, if aton tuya palay ang glancing angle formula, so 90 minus 40 is equal to 50. And then our angle of reflection here sa atong mirror 1 is also 50. Applying the laws of reflection. And then our angle, glancing angle here is also 40. So, makasolve dayon ta sa ato glancing angle sa other side sa mirror 2. So, 60 plus 40 plus x is equal to 180. Kina naman tay triangle nga rin. Kinina triangle. This is our triangle and this is the angle that we must find. So 100 plus x is equivalent to 180. So our x is equal to 80 because 180 minus 100 is equals to 80 degrees. And then, determine the final angle of reflection relative to the normal line when the ray leaves the second mirror. So, ang ato gipangita is ang angle of reflection. So, basically, just 90 minus 80 is equivalent to 10 degrees. So ang ato angle of reflection nga ni kay 10 degrees. So asa nagikan ang kining 90 minus 80? Ang katong angle of incidence or angle of reflection nga formula, which is the I mean 90 degrees minus the glancing angle. Okay, let's proceed. Sign convention or the Cartesian. So the new Cartesian sign convention, it has the reference point. All distances are measured starting from the pole of the mirror. So as you can see here, mo ni ang ato pole, the reference point. And then direction of the incident light, distances measured in the same direction as the incident light to the right of the pole are taken as positive. So kining distances towards the right, kini, that is also always positive. And then opposite to the incident light or the negative x-axis, distances measured against the direction of the incident light. So as you can see here, mo ni siyang direction of incident of light. So if anything mo oppose na direction, it will be automatically considered as negative. So distance towards the left is minus or negative. And then above the principal axis or positive y-axis or the height upwards, positive na siya. And then below the principal axis is negative. And I guess that ends for this video, for this short discussion about the reflection. And if you want to exercise your brain, you want to take practice examinations, especially on the solving part, so you can actually have annual quiz. You can take annual quiz, so the link is below the description, so you can take that so you can practice. And then that would be it for my discussion about this laws of reflection kay tong tulo ka elements kay naa sila permanente. Anya ang angle of incidence and angle of reflection is always equal. Types of reflection, we have the diffuse and the specular. And then the types of mirrors, we have the plane mirror, the spherical and the aspherical. And then the sign convention being positive if padung siya, follow ra siya sa direction sa light. And then if against siya kay negative na dayon, if upward siya plus, if obos siya negative, mura gyud na siya. And then that's it. Bye bye.